They say the road is a lonely place, but those who drive the night shift know better. You're never truly alone out there. This month, we've explored the shadows of highways, and today I've gathered every nightmare into one place. If you're driving right now, check your mirrors. Something might be watching you from the back. Welcome back, little ravens. I'm Cassandra Raven, and today we're closing our first chapter with the Ultimate Road Nightmare Collection. I've selected the most bone-chilling encounters reported this month, from the whisper inside sleeper cabs to the entities awaiting at abandoned truck stops. This is over an hour of pure, unfiltered dread. Turn off the lights, lock your doors, and let's dive into the darkness of January.
Rain has a way of turning the world into a blur of neon and gray. But on that Tuesday night, it felt like the sky was trying to wash the road away entirely. I had been behind the wheel for 10 hours, hauling a load of refrigerated goods across the state line. My eyes were burning, that familiar scratchy feeling that tells you your brain is starting to shut down. I knew I couldn't push it any further. Up ahead, a sign for a 24-hour truck stop flickered through the downpour. A small, independent place that looked like a relic of a different era. I pulled in, the tires of my rig splashing through deep puddles that looked like black oil. The lot was nearly empty, which should have been my first warning. Usually, these places are packed with drivers trying to outrun the weather, but tonight, it was just me and an old rusted tanker parked near the back fence. I didn't care. I just wanted a coffee and 10 minutes of sitting on a chair that didn't vibrate. I pulled up to pump 7 to top off the tanks. The fluorescent lights overhead were buzzing with an aggressive, insect-like sound, flickering every few seconds. As I stepped out of the cab, the cold wind hit me, carrying the sharp scent of diesel and something else, something metallic and sour. I jammed the nozzle into the tank and locked it, leaning against the side of the truck to wait. That's when I saw her. She was standing just outside the circle of light from the pump, near the edge of the tall grass that bordered the lot. She looked young, wearing a thin yellow sundress that was completely soaked, clinging to her skin. No jacket, no shoes. Just standing there in a downpour that would have frozen anyone to the bone. "Miss?" I called out, my voice sounding thin against the roar of the rain. "You okay? You need help?" She didn't move. She didn't even blink. Her eyes were fixed on the door of the diner. I stepped toward her, my instincts as a driver kicking in. You don't leave someone stranded in the middle of nowhere. But as I got closer, the air around me seemed to drop 20 degrees. It wasn't just the rain. It was a deep, localized chill that made my breath itch in my chest. "I just want to go home," she whispered. Her voice didn't sound like it came from her mouth. It sounded like it was vibrating inside my own head, a soft, echoing tone that made my skin crawl. This was the kind of real-night encounter you hear about on the radio, but never think you'll face. "Where's home, honey?" "I can call someone for you," I said, reaching for my phone. She finally turned her head. Her face was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes weren't right. They were too wide, reflecting the flickering neon of the open sign in a way that didn't seem human. "The bridge," she said. "He left me at the bridge." Before I could ask who he was, the pump clicked, signaling the tank was full. I looked back at the nozzle for a split second, and when I turned my head again, she was gone. Just gone. There was no way she could have run across that open lot in a second. I stood there, rain soaking through my flannel shirt, feeling a wave of psychological horror wash over me. I wasn't tired anymore. I was terrified. I rushed into the diner, my boots squeaking on the linoleum. The old man behind the counter didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Hey," I panted. "There's a girl out there. Yellow dress. She's in trouble." The old man finally looked up, his eyes weary and unsurprised. He sighed, a long, heavy sound that told me I wasn't the first person to say this. "Pump 7?" he asked. I nodded, gripping the counter. "Yeah, she said something about a bridge." "That's Sarah," the man said, turning back to his paper. "Back in '94, her boyfriend got into an argument with her in his rig. He kicked her out right there by the pump and drove off. Figured she'd walk to the diner. But it was a night just like this blinding rain. She tried to chase after him, slipped, and ended up under the wheels of another truck pulling in. She never made it to the diner." My stomach turned over. "You're joking." "I wish I was, driver. She shows up every time the rain gets heavy like this. She's looking for a ride to the bridge 3 miles up the road. That's where he finally stopped and realized she wasn't in the cab anymore. But she never gets there. She just fades." I didn't finish my coffee. I didn't even wait for my receipt. I ran back to my truck, locked the doors, and hauled out of that lot faster than I ever have in my life. I kept my eyes strictly on the road ahead, refusing to look at the passenger seat. I didn't want to see a yellow dress in my peripheral vision. As I crossed the bridge 3 miles up the road, my CB radio crackled to life. There was no one else on the road, no headlights for miles. But a voice came through the static, a soft, wet, whispering sound. "Thank you for stopping," the voice said. I looked in my rearview mirror. For a heartbeat, just one, I saw a pair of small, muddy handprints appearing on the glass of my rear window, slowly sliding down as if someone were letting go. Driving alone at night is part of the job. But that night, I realized the road carries more than just freight. It carries the people we leave behind. And sometimes they're still waiting for that ride home. I've been driving long haul for almost 12 years. After a while, you stop fearing the road itself. Weather, bad drivers, mechanical failures, those are predictable. What gets to you are the nights when nothing makes sense. This happened outside of eastern Wyoming, late fall. No snow yet, but cold enough that the air felt sharp when you breathed it in. I'd been pushing my hours all day, and finally pulled into a small, poorly lit rest area just after midnight. Only 3 other trucks were parked there. No cars, no RVs, just open land and darkness stretching in every direction. I did my usual routine. Curtains closed, doors locked, engine off. I climbed into the sleeper and lay there listening to the metal tick as it cooled. Wind pushed gently against the side of the trailer. Normal sounds. Familiar sounds. I fell asleep fast. What woke me up wasn't loud. It was deliberate. A single, slow knock. Not on the door. Not on the outside of the cab. Behind me. Inside the sleeper. At first, my brain tried to dismiss it. Trucks make noises. Airlines shift. Something settles. I stayed still, eyes open, listening. The cab was silent again. Then it happened a second time. Knock, knock. Right behind my head, on the wall separating the sleeper from the cab. My heart rate jumped immediately. I reached for my phone, using the screen light instead of the overhead. I swept the light across the sleeper. Empty. No movement. Curtains still closed tight. I sat up and whispered, "Hello?" Nothing answered. I told myself it was stress. Lack of sleep, my mind filling in gaps. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling. That's when the knocking started again. This time, it wasn't slow. It was rhythmic. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 knocks again. And now I could tell exactly where it was coming from. The inside wall of the sleeper, near the floor. As if someone was kneeling there, tapping from within the truck. My mouth went dry. I checked the locks again. Both doors were still sealed. No signs of forced entry. I was alone. I knew that. I grabbed the heavy flashlight I keep by the bed and slid my feet onto the floor. The moment my boots touched down, the knocking stopped. The silence felt heavier than the sound ever had. I opened the curtain slightly and shined the light into the cab. Nothing out of place. No movement outside. No shadows crossing the windshield. I stood there for a full minute, listening to my own breathing, before convincing myself to lie back down. That was my mistake. Less than a minute later, something brushed my ankle. I jerked upright so fast, I slammed my head into the overhead cabinet. The flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled across the floor. I yanked my feet up onto the bed and scrambled backward, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. There was nothing there. No hand, no object, no reason for that sensation, except I knew exactly what it felt like. Fingers. Cold, slow fingers. I didn't try to sleep after that. I sat there with my back against the wall, knees pulled to my chest, watching the sleeper like it might breathe. At around 2:40 a.m., I heard something else. Breathing. Not mine. It was faint, uneven, coming from low near the floor. I held my breath, and it continued. Shallow inhales, long exhales, right beneath the bed. I snapped the flashlight on and aimed it down. Still nothing. That's when the breathing stopped, and the knocking started again. This time it came from underneath me. The mattress vibrated slightly with each knock, like something was testing the surface, figuring out where I was. I didn't think, I reacted. I threw open the curtain, slammed into the driver's seat, and fired the engine up so hard the whole cab shook. The headlights flooded the rest stop in white light. Nothing was there. No people. No movement. Just empty pavement and distant trucks. I didn't shut the engine off again. I pulled out of that rest area immediately, driving well past my legal limit until dawn. Here's the part that still bothers me. The next morning, when I stopped for fuel, I checked the sleeper carefully. Under the bed, near the back wall, there were fresh scrape marks in the dust. Long, shallow lines, like something had been dragging its nails along the metal. I cleaned them off and never reported it. Because I didn't want anyone asking questions I couldn't answer. And because ever since that night, I never sleep with my feet hanging over the edge of the bed anymore. Some things don't knock to get in. Some things knock to let you know they're already there. I still wonder what that was. I try not to give in to the supernatural, but the evidence doesn't leave me with many other alternatives. If anyone has been through something similar, I'd like to know so I don't feel alone. And our first story is called Fog on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Appalachia always delivers the chills. Hey there, Morrigan. This happened to me and my dad. My name's Philip, and if any other names pop up, feel free to read them. They're changed for privacy. I'm 27 now, but this story hit me. It's burned into my brain since I was just 9. But I swear on everything, we both saw it, and neither of us has forgotten. It was July 2007, school vacation, and my dad's been a trucker since forever the old school kind. That time, he took me along for a long haul from Chicago to rural Kentucky, cutting through some isolated spots in the Appalachians. I was pumped, you know. Riding shotgun in that big rig felt like the ultimate adventure. I'd crash in the cab, we'd grab bites at truck stops, and I'd listen to his yarns, or we'd bump into his buddies. It was awesome. Until one night near this road I won't name. It's got a weird rep among drivers. It's desolate, pitch black, flanked by hills. Around 2 a day, dead silence except the engine and the CB radio humming. Then came the call. Breaker, breaker, anyone copy? Got a breakdown here, axle snapped, I think. Parked on the shoulder at mile 213. If you're nearby, could use a hand. My dad grabbed the mic quick. "I'm about 10 miles out, heading your way to lend a hand." The guy's voice was desperate, but flat, emotionless somehow. Anyway, Dad kept going, and minutes later, we hit the spot. But bam, a thick fog rolls in out of nowhere. Not your average mist. This was a white wall swallowing the road. Dad, being the pro he is, got cautious. Slowed down, flipped on the hazards, pulled over. I asked, "Dad, aren't we helping the guy?" He said, "Something's off, Philip. This fog, it call bad vibes. We'll watch and wait for it to lift." Then, from the fog, screams, "Help, help, please, help." We froze, but it sounded fake-looped, mechanical, like something mimicking a human. Weird as hell. Kid me started shaking, begging, "Dad, someone's in trouble." He shut me down. No way I'm leaving this truck. Something's wrong. He killed the high beams, left just the parking lights, and we went quiet. After about 5 minutes, we saw it. Emerging from the fog in the middle of the road, a figure. Slow walking, hunched, arms way too long, legs skinny like dry branches. But the height? Taller than the truck. Human-shaped, but not human. Skin looked slimy, wet, like it crawled out of a swamp. Dad muttered a curse under his breath. "Lord, that's not from this world." He crossed himself. The thing stopped dead center, turned its head our way. We couldn't see eyes, but we felt it staring. Dad panicked, fired up the engine. "Hold on tight. Philip, we're out of here." Blind in the fog, he drove by feel, following the road lines. On the CB, he popped in an old tape of a prayer to the Virgin Mary he kept for rough spots. As the words played, the air lightened, like each line pushed back the heaviness. Prayer ends, the fog vanishes like a switch flipped. Road clear ahead, nothing behind, no broken truck, no trace of anyone. We finished the delivery, headed back through that stretch in daylight to play it safe, still creepy, but manageable. After that, Dad wouldn't let me ride along for years. Said his biggest fear was that thing getting to me. He stopped answering late-night CB calls too. Even now, he prays before hitting that road and always recalls that night. Folks say I dreamed it or Dad was on something, but Morrigan, only me and my old man know what we saw. Hope you share this and feel free to give your take. Bye. I've been driving long haul for almost 12 years, and there are things you learn to accept early on. Fatigue, silence, the way your thoughts get louder when the road stays straight for too long. But what happened to me one winter night in northern Wyoming was different. It didn't feel like exhaustion or imagination. It felt deliberate. It was just after 1:30 a.m. I was hauling a refrigerated load, heading east on a stretch of highway that barely sees traffic after midnight. The weather was clear, cold enough that the stars looked sharp, like they could cut you. I'd been listening to the hum of the engine and the rhythmic slap of tires against asphalt for hours. That's when I noticed the headlights. They were far back at first. 2 white points in my mirrors, steady and centered. That wasn't unusual. You learn not to fixate on every car behind you. But after about 10 minutes, they were still there. Same distance, same position. I sped up slightly. The headlights matched my speed. I slowed down. They did too. That's when my stomach tightened. I checked my mirrors again, adjusting them just to be sure I wasn't misreading the angle. The road behind me was perfectly straight. No turns, no on-ramps. No towns for at least 40 miles. Whoever was behind me had been there for a while. I reached for the CB radio. "Any drivers eastbound on 90, you seeing a vehicle riding your tail?" Static answered me. No voices. Just that familiar hiss that fills the cab when no one's listening. I tried again a few minutes later. Same result. By 2 o'clock a.m., The feeling in my chest had turned heavy. The headlights hadn't gained or lost an inch. It was like they were locked in place, perfectly measured. That's not how real drivers behave. People drift. They pass. They back off. These didn't. I told myself it was just another truck pacing me. Maybe someone tired. Maybe someone bored. But the longer I watched them, the more wrong it felt. The light didn't bounce. It didn't shake with the road. It stayed unnaturally smooth. At 2:12 a.m., I saw the first mile marker for a small rest pull off. Just a wide patch of gravel and a single dim light pole. I didn't want to stop, but I needed to know. I slowed and signaled, easing onto the shoulder. The headlights behind me slowed too. My pulse started pounding. I pulled fully into the gravel and brought the truck to a stop. The engine idled, loud in the sudden stillness. I waited. The headlights stayed on the road. They didn't pass. They didn't pull in behind me. They just sat there, facing me from the highway, unmoving. After a full minute, I leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. I expected to see the shape of a cab, a trailer, something solid behind the lights. There was nothing. No vehicle, no outline. Just headlights floating at road level, perfectly aligned, humming softly in the distance. Then they turned off. The highway went completely dark. I sat frozen, hands clenched around the wheel, my breath shallow and fast. I told myself it was a reflection, some trick of the road. But deep down, I knew better. I'd driven this stretch dozens of times. I knew what headlights looked like. I knew what vehicles looked like. That wasn't either. I didn't stay there. I threw the truck into gear and pulled back onto the highway, my eyes scanning every inch of pavement ahead of me. The road stretched empty in both directions. For the next hour, I didn't check my mirrors. I was too afraid of what I might see. It wasn't tea until I reached a truck stop near the state line that I finally relaxed enough to breathe normally. I parked under bright lights, surrounded by other rigs, the familiar noise grounding me. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The dash camera I keep running at all times had stopped recording at exactly 2:12 a.m. No error message, no power loss. The footage just ended. I don't drive that highway anymore. I'll add hours to a route if it means avoiding that stretch. Because whatever followed me that night wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't trying to pass. It was pacing me. I've spent 15 years hauling freight across the Midwest, and you get used to the flat, endless stretches of road where the only thing that changes is the station on the radio. But there's a specific stretch of Highway 42 in Nebraska that I won't touch anymore. Not since the winter of 2018. It was one of those nights where the cold feels like it's trying to chew through the metal of the cab. My heater was blasting, but I could still feel the frost creeping up the edges of the windshield. My CB radio was off. I'm sure of it. I remember reaching over and clicking the knob to off an hour earlier because the skip was so bad that night. Just a mess of voices from states away, overlapping and giving me a headache. I just wanted the silence. I wanted to be alone with my thoughts and the hum of the tires on the salt-crusted asphalt. But about 10 miles past the last gas station, a sound started coming through the speakers. It wasn't static. It was a soft, rhythmic thumping. Thump, 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 like someone tapping a finger against a microphone. I looked at the radio, and my heart skipped a beat. The display was dark. No power light, no channel number. But the sound was coming out anyway. Then the tapping stopped, and I heard a breath. A small, shaky breath. "Hello?" a voice whispered. "Is anyone there?" I'm cold. It was a kid, a boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old. His voice was so thin, so fragile. It felt like it was made of glass. "Now, you have to understand, Out there in the middle of nowhere, hearing a child's voice on a dead radio isn't just scary. It's wrong in a way that makes your skin crawl. I reached out, my hand trembling, and I tried to turn the radio on to see if I could find the channel. The knob clicked, the green lights of the display flickered to life, but the kid's voice didn't change. It was layered under the power of the radio. "Where are you, little guy?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Are you with your parents?" "I'm in the ditch," he said. His voice started to break into a sob. "The car is upside down, and my mom won't wake up. It's so dark. Please, I see your lights. Don't go past me." I slammed on my brakes. The trailer swerved a bit on the icy road, but I brought the rig to a halt right there in the middle of the highway. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and jumped out of the cab. The wind hit me like a physical blow, 30 below zero with the wind chill. I started scanning the ditches on both sides of the road. "I'm out here," I yelled into the wind. "Keep talking to me." "Where are you?" I ran back to the cab and grabbed the mic. "I'm stopped, kid. I'm right here. Make some noise." "I see you," the boy whispered through the speaker. "You're standing by the big sign." "I'm right behind you." I turned around, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was standing next to a mile marker. Mile 42. I shined my light down into the ravine. Nothing, just deep, undisturbed snow. No car. No tracks, no broken glass. Just the white, frozen silence of the Nebraska plains. "I don't see you, buddy," I said, crying now. The cold was stinging my eyes, or maybe it was just the fear. "Talk to me. I'm right here," the voice said, and this time, it didn't come from the radio. It sounded like it was coming from the air, right next to my ear. "It's so cold, mister. Can I come inside? Please let me in." I didn't wait. I scrambled back into the driver's seat and locked the doors. My breath was coming in ragged gasps, freezing in the air inside the cabin. I looked at the passenger seat, half expecting to see a shivering, blue-lipped boy sitting there. It was empty, but the radio was screaming now. It wasn't words anymore. It was just a high-pitched, metallic wail, like a child screaming at the top of his lungs in pure, agonizing terror. I grabbed the wires behind the dashboard and ripped them out. The radio display went black. The lights died, but the screaming didn't stop. It continued for 5 minutes, vibrating the very metal of the truck until I drove past the county line. Then, as suddenly as it started, it cut to total silence. The next morning, I stopped at a diner and talked to an old-timer who had been driving those roads since the 60s. I told him I heard a kid on the radio near mile 42. He didn't look surprised. He just stared into his coffee and told me that back in '84, a woman and her son went off the road right there during a blizzard. They weren't found for 3 days. The boy had survived the crash, they said. He had spent hours on the CB radio, calling for help. But the storm was so bad, his signal never reached anyone. He froze to death with the microphone still clutched in his hand. That's the thing about these true trucker stories. Most people think the ghost is trying to hurt you. But I don't think that boy wanted to kill me. He just didn't want to be alone in the cold anymore. Now, every time I see a 42 on a map, I feel that chill in my bones. I think about that boy, still trapped in the ditch, still waiting for a truck to stop that can actually take him home. And I wonder, if I had stayed just a minute longer, would I have felt his hand on my shoulder? Or would I have just become another voice lost in the static? Last but not least, my dad vanished on the highways. Let me check names seemed sensitive from the title. Think they're swapped. Yeah. Hey, Morrigan. I'm Ryan. Didn't happen to me, but my dad, you can call him Sebastian. Names and spots changed. For better read, I'll plug in real issues roads, but not exact spot. Only one place real, road tweaked for safety. No year either still hits family hard. You hate fluff, so straight in. Dad trucked since I can remember, simple, tough, stubborn guy. Hauled lumber. Last run, delivery to rural New Mexico, on a stretch drivers call the Highway of Lost Souls. Never heard till he vanished that cursed day. Friday, he called me on his old Nokia phone. Said he was rushing home, no stops. Mentioned, 'cause a gas station ahead. Truckers crash in lots there. Remembered him. Ryan's son, this bit's weird. Road too quiet, no birds even. Gunning it home. Miss Mom, miss you? Last I heard his voice. 2 days later, company says truck no show. Calls fail. I head out with an uncle. Find it 3 days on. Abandoned roadside, looked fine. No dad. Weirdest. No skid marks, like no sudden stop. Doors locked inside. Like he evaporated nonsensical. His stuff visible through windows. Cargo untouched, lumber's hard to loot. Chatted locals. Some said stretch dangerous, supernatural vibe. One lady, since 60s, ghost processions cross nights, apparitions from wrecks, vanishings of walkers to villages. Tons of tailies. Still, odd disappearance meant investigation. Truck near that station he skipped being shut down, no staff stuck long. Remote. Owners closing. Pumps dry, but security cams caught the roadside. One angled perfect on truck. Footage. Dad pulls over at night. Place empty, no guard. Staff. Cams show stop, but no one exit or enter. Watched hours next day. Folks peek in windows, curious, then leave. Up to our arrival. Morrigan. Bottom line. Dad never found zilch. Truck lock picked by cops. Nothing inside, no trace, not even phone. Tech then sucked, but traced last call to me pinged near truck. More searches same spot, like phone inside, but gone. Mystery still. Case archived years back. Declared dead. Family did a ceremony after 3 years hunting to say goodbye. Some wonder why no more search, but honestly, nothing left. Footage spooked even cops, no in out. Only theory, crawled under truck to rear, off cam. But impossible, no hole, no sign. So we gave him a proper rest. Still touchy. I avoid talking unless pressed on no dad, or how he died folks disbelieve. Sent to you, 'cause you handled tailies with care. Respect the wild ones. Hope you read. A hug. I've never believed the most dangerous thing on the road was something supernatural. It's people. That's what made this harder to explain. I was hauling frozen food through western Nebraska, running late, trying to beat a winter storm that was rolling in faster than forecasted. Snow hadn't hit yet, but the air felt heavy, like the night was holding its breath. I stopped at a remote rest area just before midnight. 2 parking rows, no fuel station. No vending machines. Just bathrooms, trees, and darkness. The kind of place truckers only use when they don't have a choice. There were 3 other trucks parked when I arrived. All engines off. No lights. No movement. I backed into a spot near the edge, killed the engine, and climbed into the sleeper cab. I remember checking the locks twice. Not because I felt scared, just habit. I laid down fully clothed, boots still on, listening to the wind brush against the trailer. That's when my CB radio crackled. At first, it was just static. Normal. Annoying. I reached to turn it off. Before I could, a voice came through. Low. Calm. Male. Driver in the blue Freightliner. You gonna sleep with the lights on? I froze. I hadn't keyed the mic. I hadn't said a word on the radio all night. And I hadn't told anyone what I was driving. I sat up slowly and grabbed the mic. Who is this? Static. Then breathing. Not microphone breathing. Not distorted. T sounded close. Like someone exhaling near the cab. I checked the mirrors. Nothing. No headlights. No movement near the other trucks. Funny thing, the voice said, clearer now. I thought you'd lock the door. My stomach dropped. I leaned forward and checked the lock again. Still locked. I scanned the cab, heart pounding, suddenly aware of how thin the walls really were. You parked crooked, the voice continued. Makes it easier to notice you. I whispered. This isn't funny. I know, he replied. That's why I'm not laughing. The CB went dead. I sat there in silence, trying to breathe, telling myself it was a prank. Another trucker messing around. Someone with too much time and a sick sense of humor. But when I looked outside again, one of the other trucks was gone. No engine noise. No lights pulling away. Just an empty space where it had been parked. That's when I noticed something else. My side mirror was folded inward. I hadn't touched it. I locked everything again, hands shaking, and turned the cab lights on. I didn't care how visible I was anymore. I needed to see. The CB crackled again. You really shouldn't turn the lights on, the voice said softly. Now I can see you. I lost it. I jumped out of the sleeper, grabbed my tire iron, and swung the cab door open. There was no one there. No footprints in the dirt. No fresh tire tracks. Just my truck and one other rig parked far down the lot. I stood there breathing hard, scanning the darkness, telling myself I was done. I was leaving. That's when I heard the door behind me close. Not slam, close. I turned around slowly. The cab door was shut. Locked. I rushed forward and grabbed the handle. It didn't budge. The CB inside the truck came to life again. Volume high enough to hear through the door. You always forget one thing, the voice said. You can lock yourself out, but you can't lock me out. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember climbing back inside. The next thing I remember clearly is sitting on the edge of the sleeper, sweating, daylight bleeding through the windshield. The CB was off. The doors were unlocked, and written in the condensation on the inside of the windshield were 3 words, smeared like someone used a finger. You were awake. I left immediately. Didn't check the other trucks. Didn't talk to anyone. I reported it later. They said there were no CB transmissions logged in that area overnight. No complaints. No disturbances. No missing drivers. Sometimes I tell myself it was exhaustion, stress, a half-dream, but I sold my CB radio after that. Because to this day, I don't know if that voice came from the radio, or if the radio was just how it chose to speak. There's a specific kind of hunger you get after 14 hours on the road. A hunger that isn't just in your stomach, but in your soul. You're starving for light, for the smell of burnt coffee, and for the sound of someone else's laughter to remind you that you're still human. I was hauling through a desolate stretch of New Mexico, a place where the stars look like cold salt spilled on a black table. My GPS had quit on me miles back, leaving me to rely on an old paper map and a gut feeling that I was heading in the right direction. The silence of the desert was starting to feel heavy, almost physical, pressing against the glass of my windows. I reached for my CB radio, hoping to catch some chatter from a nearby ranch or another driver, but for miles, it was just the empty hiss of the great empty. Then the signal hit. It didn't fade in. It arrived like a thunderclap. Suddenly, my speakers were filled with life. I heard the clinking of silverware against porcelain, the muffled roar of a jukebox playing an old Waylon Jennings tune, and the boisterous laughter of a dozen men. It sounded like the busiest truck stop in the world was sitting right in my passenger seat. A woman's voice, warm and honey-thick, cut through the background noise. This is Dusty's Oasis on Channel 19. If you're tired, hungry, or just lonely, come on in. We've got the lights on, the coffee's fresh, and the pie is still warm. We're just 5 miles ahead at the junction of Route 9. You can't miss the neon. I felt a surge of genuine joy. Route 9 wasn't on my main path, but I was desperate for a break. I keyed the mic. Dusty's Oasis, this is Big Mac. I hear you loud and clear. 5 miles, you say? I'm on my way. Save a slice of that pie for me. We see you coming, Big Mac, the woman replied with a soft giggle. We can see your headlights crowning the hill right now. Just follow the red neon glow. We're waiting for you. I pushed the rig a little harder. As I topped the rise, I looked down the long, straight ribbon of road. My heart sank. There were no lights, no red neon, no bustling parking lot filled with chrome and steel. There was only the desert, flat and gray under the moonlight. I checked the radio. The sounds were even clearer now. I could hear someone ordering a steak, medium rare. I could hear the bell on the diner door, chiming as people walked in. Dusty's. I'm at the junction, I said, my voice dropping an octave. I don't see any lights. Are you sure about the location? Oh, honey, you're right on top of us, the woman laughed. It was a friendly sound, but it sent a needle of ice down my spine. You're pulling into the lot right now. I can see your Peterbilt logo shining. My goodness, that's a beautiful truck. Park it right up front, sugar. Come on inside. I slowed the truck to a crawl. My headlights swept across the junction. It wasn't a truck stop. It was a graveyard of rusted metal. In the middle of the dirt stood the skeletal remains of a building. The roof had collapsed long ago, and the walls were nothing but charred timber and jagged glass. A sign hung crookily from a single rusted chain, swaying in the wind. Even in the dark, I could make out the faded letters, DUSTYS. There were no other trucks. Just the husks of 3 or 4 vehicles from the 1960s, stripped of their tires and engines, half buried in the shifting sand like bleached bones. But the radio was jubilant. Look at him. A man's voice boomed of the speaker. He's a big fella, isn't he? Hey, Mac. We're waving at you from the window. Can't you see us? Come on, step out of that cab and stretch your legs. The coffee is pouring. I stared at the ruins of the diner. Through my windshield, I saw nothing but shadows and sagebrush. But through the radio, I heard a chair being pulled out across a linoleum floor. I heard the woman whisper, "He's hesitant. Go on, give him a wave." Suddenly, my high beams flickered. For a fraction of a second, the blink of an eye, the ruins changed. In that flash, the building was whole. The windows were glowing with a warm, inviting amber light. I saw the silhouettes of people sitting at the counter. I saw a woman in a white apron standing by the door, waving a dish towel at me. And then it was gone. Just the ruins and the wind. Why are you still in the truck, Mac? The woman's voice asked. She didn't sound friendly anymore. She sounded hungry. It's cold out there. It's so cold in the dark. Come inside where it's warm. We've been waiting for a new face for a long, long time. Then I heard a sound that made me lose my mind. It was the sound of footsteps, heavy, boots on gravel, footsteps approaching my driver's side door. He's almost at your door, Mac, the radio whispered. Open it up. Let him welcome you. I didn't look at the window. I didn't look at the mirror. I slammed the truck into reverse, the tires screaming as they tore up the dirt. I did a chaotic U-turn that nearly flipped the trailer, and I floored it back the way I came. Where are you going? The voices on the radio screamed in unison. The music stopped. The diner sounds turned into a chorus of screeching, distorted feedback. Stay with US. It's so cold out here. The screaming followed me for 10 miles. It didn't matter if I turned the volume down or changed the channel. The voices were coming from the speakers, from the dashboard, even from the metal frame of the truck itself. It felt like the truck was vibrating with their anger. When I finally hit the main interstate and saw the lights of a real modern-day gas station, the radio went dead. Not just silent, the entire unit fried. Smoke started curling out of the vents, and the smell of ozone and rotting meat filled the cab. I never went back to New Mexico. I did some research later and found out that Dusty's Oasis burned down in 1972. A propane leak. Everyone inside, the staff, the drivers, the travelers, they all died in minutes. That's the thing about these true trucker stories. We think we're the ones traveling through the world. But sometimes, we stumble into a place that stopped traveling. A place that's stuck in a loop of its last happy moment, waiting for someone to pull off the road and join them in the ashes. If you ever find a frequency that sounds a little too perfect, a little too welcoming, do yourself a favor. Keep your eyes on the road and your foot on the gas. Because once you step out of your truck and into that warmth, you might find that the door behind you has disappeared forever. I've spent more nights in truck stops than I can count. After a while, they all blur together. The hum of diesel engines, the glow of fluorescent lights, the same fast food smells trapped in cold night air. You learn to sleep through noise. You learn to trust routine. That night, routine is what got me into trouble. I pulled into the truck stop a little after 1 a.m., exhausted after a long stretch of night driving. It was one of the larger ones, right off the highway. Plenty of rigs already parked, lights bright enough to make the darkness feel distant. A kind of place where you tell yourself nothing bad can happen. I parked near the middle rows, shut the engine off, and sat there for a moment, letting the cab settle. Metal ticking as it cooled. Wind brushing against the trailer. I locked the doors. I always do. I crawled into the sleeper cab, pulled the curtains closed, and lay down. Sleep didn't come right away. My mind felt restless, like it hadn't caught up with my body yet. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the layered sounds of the lot engines idling, air brakes releasing, the occasional door slam. Then I heard footsteps. At first, I ignored them. People walk between trucks all night. But these were slow, measured. They stopped right beside my driver's door. I waited for the sound of another door opening. Nothing. I waited for the sound of another door opening. Nothing. A knock followed. 3 light taps against the metal. Not aggressive. Almost polite. My stomach tightened. No one knocks on a sleeper cab at that hour unless something's wrong. I stayed still, listening. Another knock. Driver? A man's voice said quietly, "You awake?" It sounded normal, calm, almost friendly. That's what made it worse. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, the voice spoke again, closer this time. "I just need a minute of your time." Every instinct told me not to move. I reached forward and locked the doors again, even though I knew they already were. The silence stretched. Finally, footsteps moved away. I lay there, tense, heart pounding, until exhaustion dragged me under. I woke up to my name. Not shouted, whispered, "Hey, wake up." My eyes snapped open. The sleeper was dark, unchanged. Curtains still drawn. Doors locked. Then it came again. John. No one at that truck stop knew my name. I sat up slowly, pulse racing, and checked my phone. No notifications. No missed calls. The clock read 3:12 a.m. I told myself I'd been dreaming. Stress, lack of sleep. Night driving does strange things to your head. Then I heard breathing. Not outside, inside the cab. It was shallow and uneven, like someone trying not to be heard. I turned toward the sleeper wall, every muscle locked, and listened. The breathing stopped the moment I moved. Silence flooded back in. I swung my legs into the driver's seat, hands shaking as I reached for the keys. Before I could turn them, a knock sounded again. This time, it wasn't on the door. It came from the sleeper wall behind me. 3 taps. I froze, staring at the spot where the sound had come from. The wall didn't move. Nothing pressed against it. It was just there. Then the voice whispered again, low and intimate. You shouldn't ignore people who need help. I slammed the ignition. The engine roared to life, vibration shaking the cab. The sound drowned out everything else. I pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. The lot looked exactly the same as before. Trucks lined up neatly. A few drivers walking toward the building. No one standing near my cab. I told myself I'd imagined it. That the voice, the knocking, all of it was my mind filling in gaps. I shut the engine off. That's when the passenger side curtain started to move. Not fast, slowly, like someone was pulling it aside with 2 fingers. I shouted and lunged forward, slamming the ignition again. The engine roared and the curtain stopped moving. I didn't wait this time. I pulled out of the lot and merged back onto the highway, hands tight on the wheel. I checked my mirrors constantly, expecting headlights to follow me. They didn't. After sunrise, once my nerves settled, I convinced myself it had been exhaustion, a hallucination. I'd heard of drivers experiencing things like that. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I called the truck stop. I asked the woman on the phone if there'd been any incidents overnight. She hesitated before answering. You're not the first to ask, she said. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I asked. She lowered her voice. About someone knocking on trucks, talking to drivers, saying their names. I asked if anyone had been caught. No, she said. There's never anyone on the cameras. I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the road ahead of me. How was that possible? Nobody knew my name. I didn't stop at that place again. Whatever it wasn't human. The feeling is one of powerlessness. Hearing your name and a breath inside the cabin. It's impossible to explain rationally. That's my story. I know it's hard to believe, but I know it's true. What makes this story disturbing isn't the knocking. Truck stops are meant to break isolation. They're designed to make drivers feel surrounded, protected, watched. And yet, whatever spoke to him didn't need darkness or distance. It didn't need an empty road. It waited until he felt safe. The most unsettling detail is that the voice didn't demand entry. It didn't threaten. It didn't force itself inside. It knew patience would be enough. And knowing his name changes everything. This suggests intention, familiarity, awareness. Whether it was something supernatural or psychological, it was far too intimate. If this were only exhaustion, the experience would fade with daylight. But it didn't. It followed structure, repetition, escalation. So the question isn't what was knocking. The question is why it chooses truck stops, places full of people, to remind drivers how alone they really are. And if it knows when you're awake, what happens when you finally fall asleep?
We've traveled many dark miles together this month, but this is only the beginning. Which one of these stories made you want to pull over and never drive at night again? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading your encounters. But before you go, make sure to subscribe and join our flock of ravens. In February, the darkness shifts. We're moving away from the roads and into the silent corridors of hospitals and night shifts where the living aren't the only ones walking the halls. Safe travels, if you can. I see you in the next nightmare.